The United States and Israel both assess that Iran does not yet have a nuclear weapon, and we are exceedingly vigilant in monitoring their program. Now the international community has a responsibility to use the time and space that exists. Sanctions are continuing to increase. And this July, thanks to our diplomatic coordination, a European ban on Iranian oil imports will take hold. Faced with these increasingly dire consequences, Iran's leaders still have the opportunity to make the right decision. They can choose a path that brings them back into the community of nations, or they can continue down a dead end. And given their history, there are, of course, no guarantees that the Iranian regime will make the right choice. But both Israel and the United States have an interest in seeing this challenge resolved diplomatically. After all, the only way to truly solve this problem is for the Iranian government to make a decision to forsake nuclear weapons. That's what history tells us. Moreover, as President and Commander-in-Chief, I have a deeply held preference for peace over war. I have sent men and women into harm's way. I've seen the consequences of those decisions in the eyes of those I meet who've come back gravely wounded, and the absence of those who don't make it home. Long after I leave this office, I will remember those moments as the most searing of my presidency. And for this reason, as part of my solemn obligation to the American people, I will only use force when the time and circumstances demand it. And I know that Israeli leaders also know all too well the costs and consequences of war, even as they recognize their obligation to defend their country. So we all prefer to resolve this issue diplomatically. Having said that, Iran's leaders should have no doubt about the resolve of the United States. Just as they should not doubt Israel's sovereign right to make its own decisions about what is required to meet its security needs. I have said that when it comes to preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, I will take no options off the table. And I mean what I say. That includes all elements of American power. A political effort aimed at isolating Iran, a diplomatic effort to sustain our coalition and ensure that the Iranian program is monitored, an economic effort that imposes crippling sanctions, and yes, a military effort to be prepared for any contingency. Iran's leaders should understand that I do not have a policy of containment. I have a policy to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And as I have made clear time and again during the course of my presidency, I will not hesitate to use force when it is necessary to defend the United States and its interests. Moving forward, I would ask that we all remember the weightiness of these issues. The stakes involved for Israel, for America, and for the world. Already there's too much loose talk of war. Over the last few weeks, such talk has only benefited the Iranian government, by driving up the price of oil, which they depend on to fund their nuclear program. For the sake of Israel's security, America's security, and the peace and security of the world, now is not the time for bluster. Now's the time to let our increased pressure sink in and to sustain the broad international coalition we have built. Now's the time to heed the timeless advice from Teddy Roosevelt. Speak softly. Carry a big stick. And as we do, rest assured that the Iranian government will know our resolve, that our coordination with Israel will continue. Now, these are challenging times. But we've been through challenging times before. And the United States and Israel have come through them together. Because of our cooperation, citizens in both our countries have benefited from the bonds that bring us together. I'm proud to be one of those people. In the past, I've shared in this forum just why those bonds are so personal for me. The stories of a great uncle who helped liberate Buchenwald, to my memories of returning there with Elie Wiesel. From sharing books with President Perez, to sharing seders with my young staff, and a tradition that started on the campaign trail and continues in the White House. From the countless friends I know in this room, to the concept of tikkun olam that has enriched and guided my life. As Harry Truman understood, Israel's story is one of hope. We may not agree on every single issue. No two nations do. And our democracies contain a vibrant diversity of views. But we agree on the big things, the things that matter. And together, we are working to build a better world. One where our people can live free from fear. One where peace is founded upon justice. One where our children can know a future that is more hopeful than the present. There is no shortage of speeches on the friendship between the United States and Israel. But I'm also mindful of the proverb, a man is judged by his deeds, not his words. So if you want to know where my heart lies, look no further than what I have done. To stand up for Israel, to secure both of our countries, and to see that the rough waters of our time lead to a peaceful and prosperous shore. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you. God bless the people of Israel. God bless the United States of America.
That was President Obama addressing AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. With me at the table are Bill Schneider, Amani Jamal, Robert Trainum, and Jelani Cobb. So we all watched the speech together. It was quite a long speech. I thought I would just read one piece here. Iran's leaders should know that I do not have a policy of containment. I have a policy to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Is that enough?
It depends. I think it depends on, quite frankly, what the folks in Israel are thinking right now, but also, quite frankly, the folks here in this country. What I found interesting about the speech very quickly, it was almost like a potpourri of adjectives. It was very clinical in the beginning, but he's finished fairly strong. It was, for me, pretty much a campaign speech and very defensive of talking about his holistic record over the last 3.5 years, but also talking about, look, we've been through some tough times before. I know exactly where I stand. I know exactly where Israel stands, and there will be no compromise. So I thought it was just a very interesting speech where he had to, at least he thought he had to, walk the viewer through his Israeli record.
Right.
There's also the domestic dynamic here of him thinking about Florida and those 27 electoral votes that are at stake. Yep. So he's thinking about that, and at the same time, he has to present a strong face in terms of dealing with Iran, which is a legitimate international concern. But he also knows that after Libya, after Iraq, after Afghanistan, there is a limited appetite in the United United States for more military engagement in the Middle East, particularly with a regime as strong as Iran.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say goodbye to the four of you, my fantastic guests, Bill Snyder, Amani Jamal, Robert Trainum, and Jelani Cobb. I have to say goodbye because after a long speech,